All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello, all. I'm excited. Yes, I know you're looking in and you're saying it's slightly new configuration. Your studio, we've newly configured. Configuration, I think. They're ding words, both of them. Configured and configuration. Very excited. Day 2 of our new configuration in the studio. And I'm still kind of getting used to where everything is. So please bear with us. Great to have everybody here. And when I say everybody, I mean Kim, who is here. Kim, how are you? Oh,
Kim, how are you?
There you are. And Tony, of course.
Thanks, Tony.
Arranging many of the things that we'll do today from the standpoint of video and audio and that sort of thing. We will look back at night 1 of the Democratic National Convention. Who doesn't like a convention? Am I right, everyone? We made the point yesterday. We hold hands, we sing, we cheer, we chant. I love watching conventions, particularly the DNC now with this sort of new sense of unification around a new candidate as they try to birth a chant. Different parts of the room try to birth different chants at the same time. You know, go Joe, come back Joe, thank you Joe. It's all there. So that's kind of a little side thing that I watch. There were, I thought, really impressive speeches. If you like impressive speeches, it was a good place to be. It was not really the most, well, from the standpoint of time, it was not the best organized. The president of the United States, he's the current president, Joe Biden. Maybe you've heard of him. He came on late, very late. He came on so late on the East Coast, I believe, and Kim, you can let me know, I believe on the East Coast, networks had already bailed out of their coverage of the event. I mean,
Kim, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not sure of that, but I'm fairly certain that, well, he went on for, what, about an hour? Did he speak for an hour, Kim?
He spoke for a while. It was probably a little more than that, yeah.
So he finished after midnight on the East Coast, I want to say around 12:40, something like that. That means he started at 11:30 or whatever. This is, again, Eastern time, but I'll just remind you, that's where most of the viewers are.
He had a lot to say.
He had a lot to say. And I'm not...
He had to talk about his own career, and then he had to pass the torch. I mean, it was busy.
Yeah, I think it indeed is the case that 52 minutes. Thank you, Delwood Kelp. Delwood, I don't have a drop for you, so I'm just thanking you like you're Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
The reality is, though, that I think a lot of TV viewers anyway, network TV viewers, never saw it. Now, you may say, it's a small point, but just to round it out, the reality is everything boils down to a soundbite. Anyway, it comes down to the punditry, and it's going to be played the next day. The notion of seeing it live is a vanishing one. A very small percentage of people actually go wall to wall with conventions. Sure, many people who watch this show, Kim, myself, etc., will watch more than others, but generally speaking, voters don't watch things wall to wall. It's not
my experience, because my mom was calling me about different things that were said. Then I have this group of moms that I'm on a chat thread with or a text thread with, and they were all watching too. So it seemed like maybe the excitement around the momentum around what's happening with Kamala Harris had more people tuning in.
I think that there is a degree of political awareness and involvement now in America that there may not have been before, but I still think some of the general trends in terms of, you know, pick and choose voters. They kind of have a sense of things. You can call it low information, call it whatever you want. I think that's generally still probably a pretty good way to characterize the American electorate. That's not a put down. I mean, I think people are busy. They're doing other stuff. I did, and I'm just noticing here, Sandy says, I loved it. I cried at the end. I was overwhelmed by all the love. I kept thinking how you would never see such love at a Republican convention, especially with Trump and his cold-hearted family. Wow, that's a...
I'm not going to cry! I'm not going to cry!
Well, it was something, and Joe Biden himself choked up. I mean, I think it is it's a moment in time that we've never seen before, and you could say we've never seen anything like it.
There's never been anything like this.
And I also think that there were some legitimately moving parts of that night. So
Hilary Clinton's, when she spoke about the glass ceiling being shattered, you know, and she went through all of the women that had come before her. She talked about Shirley Chisholm and Geraldine Ferraro and herself. And then she said, this is when we break through. This, she said, the future is here. And I'm crying
Hilary,
like a baby.
Yeah, and I have to say, I was so excited that Hilary Clinton was going to be the first woman to ascend to the presidency.
Yeah.
And I see the society at large and cultures at large as being patriarchal and essentially locking women out of so many things. Everything, some things they may not want to be part of, but I mean, like the priesthood, and they lock them out of that. I'm thinking, I don't know, they really want to be part of that? Maybe. I mean, devout Catholics probably do want to be part of that. Yeah. But these are political institutions. I point to the Catholic Church and I can refer to it as a political institution. But what I mean to say is that the patriarchy is strong, and it's strong in this country too, and it has repressed women. It's repressed women in terms of their vote. It's repressed women in terms of their pay. And I was excited that Hilary Clinton, not because she was Hilary Clinton particularly, but I'm just talking about although there were certainly aspects of Hilary Clinton's policies and knowledge, and I respected her as a knowledgeable person. We didn't agree on a lot of things, or certainly some things, but I was excited about that. So that was a setback. I mean, that was a remarkable setback. And to see the potential, anyway, that Kamala Harris may now take on the role of the first woman, and then, of course, a woman of color in the White House, that's palpably exciting. So I get that.
Hillary Clinton speak last night, it felt like she was so powerful and so moving that I was being texted, she got robbed, the country got robbed. Honestly, because you think about how different those years would have been if it was her instead of Trump.
Oh, it's unbelievable to think the Supreme Court alone. Yeah. I mean, it's unreal. Look, I go back, you can play that game. I go back to Al Gore, because Al Gore had that election stolen from him, legit stolen, by a Supreme Court that told them to stop the count in Florida. The governor of Florida is the brother, at the time, of the candidate running for president. It's an absolute banana republic situation, and the court was mobbed up for George Bush. And that is how Gore lost. Gore legitimately won that election in an independent counts. I think there have been 6 of them. It reflects the fact that Gore won. I mention that because imagine, you'd have no war in Iraq. You'd have a totally different Supreme Court. You'd have a completely different disposition toward climate change and toward living sustainably. Even with the hypocrisy of Gore, et cetera, you can tell me about that. But as a public policy matter, it would have been so much. So you can play that. Yep. You can play that back, and it's brutal. Here is Randy saying Steve Kerr gave a good speech last night.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, he was really good.
I give credit, he says, I'll just read this and then I'll hear from you. I give Kerr credit for stepping out there and expressing his opinions because he knows he's going to catch S for it. From some people. That's exactly right. Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, he even said that in the speech. He said, I could just see the tweets coming in now, so blow your whistle, coach, kind of thing. But he ended it with a Steph Curry. Yeah, with a Steph Curry. We said, we'll tell Trump after this election, night-night. And then he walked away. Total mic drop moment. Yeah.
Great finish. I absolutely agree. Yeah. I watched it on MSNBC, and they didn't talk over it at all. Well, there you go.
Good. ABC was talking over it all the time, and at some points, I just wanted him to shut it.
Yeah.
Chit, chit, chit.
YouTube coverage was better than the TV coverage because the TV announcers talked instead of seeing the speakers, says Ren. NPR was playing it in real time, says the Lady Beatrice. And Dan, of course, says, Kim, how are you?
Kim, how are you?
All right.
Dan.
So
ABC felt like, that broadcaster thing where you feel like you have to cover dead air?
Sure.
So every time there was a lag of anything, their, reporters and pundits were jabbering. But at some points, you kind of just wanted to experience the the convention and see what was going on. You didn't necessarily need all of that. So,
now
yeah,
let me speak to be fair to the chatty ABC and other major mainstream network coverage. You know, there is a school of thought, which is if you want to see the raw feed without any announcers, there's plenty of ways to take it in now. There's YouTube, there's streaming, etc. There are experienced journalists who are there in the anchor booth, and they're providing ongoing real-time commentary. And if you think about it this way, not as an interruption, but you think about it this way, as someone who's on the couch with you, who is sharing experience, reflections, and informed opinion, I view it as enhancing the experience as opposed to detracting from it. Now, you can, again, argue this back and forth or just forget about the argument and just watch whatever you want. But I think that's what I would say in defense of those chatting over the cheering.
And normally that's what I would say as being someone who has been a reporter, not at a convention, but in that, one of those positions. I like hearing reports and hearing news and hearing what's upcoming and all these things. But for some reason, I think it was a little too much.
Yeah. I was looking for, I can't find anything anymore on the new, it'll come together and I'll get used to it. But I was looking for the, listen to me, I don't want to hear you, Judge Judy, but I can't find it. I know.
Oh, no.
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
No, that's not
there
the
you
one
go.
I wanted.
You look very professional today, by the way.
Thank you.
Listen to me. I don't want to hear you.
Thank you. That's it. Yeah, I'm just to put on the black shirt for all right. I have a lot to get to. Tony, I've given you a lot of stuff. We have David K. Johnston on the show today, beginning the second hour. Really exciting. The Pulitzer Prize winner joins us top of the next hour. Jefferson Graham, Tech Tuesday, he'll be through. He's got some important information about new technology that is out, and also about stuff that's going on now with older technology, established technology. Before we leave the world of the DNC, I did want to kind of reflect on things, and we can...
The Mark Thompson Show.
We can do it since it was such a Biden-centric night. By the way, I know Biden went on very late. We already made that point. They dropped James Taylor. I mean, James Taylor was going to perform. They bumped James Taylor for, was it Raskin maybe they dropped, it's hard to know, but they rearranged and reworked a lot of the speakers because they were running so far behind. And let me say this, I'm quite sympathetic to shows that run behind. Yes, I am. But let's do it. Here it is, some Bowling with Biden.
Live from White House Lanes, it's Bowling with Biden.
It's go time!
This man's going to win a lot of political offices.
Now, here's your Bowling with Biden host, Mark Thompson.
And I am excited for the thank you, Courtney. Courtney's just passed through. Well, angrily,
Courtney?
apparently. Yeah,
In and out. There she went.
Yeah, there you go.
What did you do this time?
I don't know. She's got... we'll see. Let me take a look. She's probably telling me something. Who knows?
What have you done?
No, I don't see anything.
You know what's bad is when you don't even realize you've done something. You have to check the texts.
Well, my friend Mike says when he comes home from work, the first thing he yells when he comes through the door is, "Honey, I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm apologizing for, but I'm really sorry." All right. Now, let's loved the Crockett description of Kamala Harris as a bright light in a sea of darkness. That's from Vilma. Thank you, Vilma, for that. The super chat for $5.
Big shout out.
That. And Trevor Starr in Hollywood says Biden's speech was great last night. I was in tears, he says, although I was disappointed that Jim Clyburn didn't scream into the mic and rip his shirt off.
Big shout out.
You mean like Hulk Hogan did? Hey, brother, don't make fun of me, brother. And then somebody taking issue with me, I believe it was probably Randy, of course, It really wasn't a Biden-centric night, Mark, until the last hour or so before Biden spoke. I thought many of those speakers could have gone on tonight. Well, there was a reference to Biden, I thought, throughout the night. So when I say Biden-centric, perhaps you're right. I mischaracterized it that way, but let's face it. He was a keynote speaker, if you want to think of it that way. I'm a Steve Kerr fan, but the night thing was corny and brash, in my opinion, says Doug. Oh, wow. Well, that's what, that's what makes things interesting. While Biden was giving his speech, I was kind of cringing when he appeared feeble, but then I remembered that he's not the candidate anymore.
Yeah.
Let me say something about that. I think that's true. I think that's right. I think if you listened to Biden last night, you saw a guy who was trying to be energetic. He screamed a bunch of the speech. When I say screamed, I mean forcefully projected a lot of the speech. And he did that well. But as Vicky says, there was a cringe factor to the Biden speech, primarily because he reminded you through the speech, in addition to reminding you of his accomplishments, in his delivery, that he's not a good messenger for a lot of the politics of the age. And even this accomplished guy, we've talked about it on this show before, he's had a largely transformative administration, particularly in this intensely partisan political environment. And yet, his ability to speak about what he has done, his ability to talk about various things that need to be spoken of, it's diminished. He is not who he might have been 20 years ago. I like when she mentioned Trump's 34 felony convictions. The crowd yelled, "Lock him up," and she smiled, said Calvin Wong, who's the shadow producer of this show. I actually felt...
That's Hillary he's talking about.
That's Hilary Clinton. I felt in the Hillary moment she could have not, and I don't think she encouraged it, but she did drink it in. It's an awkward thing, but I feel the rancor and anything that's adjacent to the kind of lock him up, stirring the pot of potential political violence or recrimination, it rubs me the wrong way. Maybe I just long for the discourse of the past, which was a little more, everybody was courteous, everybody was a good sport. We don't have that anymore in America. Now it's everybody's a gunslinger, everybody's a mudslinger. Brian Reich says, last night we saw people speaking from their heart. The Republicans spoke from their arse last week. I do think there was less hate in the room. The Republicans, I think the coin of the realm is darkness, hate, and let's get them. I think there was less of that. There wasn't none of that. There was just less of that. Axelrod's take on Hillary's lock him up moment was that she should have put a stop to it. I found that interesting. Yeah, Randy says, I guess I'm not there quite with, I don't know how you put a stop to it, but I do feel as though it made me uncomfortable. Best moment for Biden was when he called out Trump's disrespect for our veterans. James Watson, thank you. I agree completely. I'm going to talk to David K. Johnston about that, even as Trump tries to somehow spin that. He has been a despicable, grotesque candidate and president when it comes to his treatment of veterans and veteran issues and those who have made supreme sacrifices for this country. It's so beyond the pale that I can't believe that this guy has any support from our military. I was in tears with the abortion issue speakers, says Debbie. Yes, they were remarkably powerful. And I'm so glad that, not that they wouldn't be included, but that they gave them real time to be included, because this is a cornerstone issue going into this election. And I love, if we speak about women, it's not just women ascending to positions of power, vice presidency, presidency. It's about the issues that affect women, and not just women, but those who care about women. So I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you, Debbie Sanchez, for that.
I loved how they had 3 different, abortion type of situations or reproductive care situations. And all of those speakers had gut-wrenching stories. I thought that was a really powerful moment as well. I mean, a lot of it was kind of emotional. The whole night was emotional.
Yeah, agreed. Tony, you've got a wrap package on it. Is that what you have? This is from GMA. Here's a little something, kind of a summary of the night, although we've obviously summarized it a bit. Here's some sound bites and your favorite morning team or whatever from GMA. Go ahead, George. And
Democratic National Convention started last night. President Biden took the stage in Chicago just before midnight, passed the torch to Vice President Kamala Harris, calling her tough, experienced, with enormous integrity. He also warned of the danger posed by Donald Trump, saying that democracy must be preserved.
We have team coverage from Chicago this morning. Our chief White House correspondent, Mary Bruce, she made it to Chicago. She's there on the convention floor and starts us off. Good morning to you, Mary.
Good morning, Robin. Well, this was a jam-packed and emotional first night. The president speaking for nearly an hour, going well past midnight. And in many ways, this was his swan song. The president touting and defending his record and making a forceful case for Kamala Harris to carry his legacy forward.
By the way, stop this for a second, Tony, and then we'll hear this. I do feel as though there was a fork in the road here for Joe Biden. It was really make the case for Kamala Harris and or really make the case for the job you've done, which, as I say, is not only respectable. I mean, you could argue that it's transformative. You really, to get this legislation through, like the infrastructure package, was quite impressive. I mean, and you know, now the negotiation around drug pricing, at least for a handful or a couple of handfuls of prescription medications for Medicare. I was divided. Like, I thought, if I were Joe Biden, knowing that that's the audience I have, I might tout those accomplishments as well. But you could also say you're there to try to whip up additional enthusiasm about Kamala Harris. I thought he split that baby pretty well. But anyway, go ahead, Tony. Sorry.
Overnight, a teary-eyed Joe Biden taking the convention stage to a rousing standing ovation over 4 minutes long. The crowd chanting, "Thank you, Joe."
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
The president passing the torch to his vice president, Kamala Harris. They're watching on.
Selecting Kamala was the very first decision I made when I became our nominee. And it was the best decision I made my whole career.
It was not the address he had expected to give. The president speaking on the first night of what just a month ago he thought would be his convention.
It's been the honor of my lifetime to serve as your president. I love the job, but I love my country more.
The president ticking through his accomplishments, but arguing it's Harris, not him, who's now best suited to finish the job.
I promise I'll be the best volunteer Harris and Walsh has Cam ever seen.
I thought that was a good
Harris
line.
making a surprise appearance on the stage earlier in the night and praising Biden.
Joe, thank you for your historic leadership, for your lifetime of service to our nation, and for all you will continue to do. We are forever grateful to you. Thank you, Joe.
The vice president, now the second woman to lead a major party's ticket. The first, former Secretary of State Hilary Clinton, now also passing the torch.
Something is happening in America. You can feel it.
Clinton noting Harris could now be the one to finally break that glass ceiling.
This is our time, America. This is when we stand up. This is when we break through. The future is here. It's in our grasp. Let's go win it.
But the last word belonging to Biden, the president eager to cement his legacy and deliver the White House to Harris.
Let me know in my heart, when my days are through, America, America, I gave my best to you.
The party's past and future embracing on the stage. Harris appearing to tell Biden, "I love you so much." Harris now heads to Milwaukee for a rally there tonight alongside her running mate Tim Walz. While back here on the convention floor tonight, the big headliners, the Obamas, the former president and Michelle Obama both delivering remarks. Then Wednesday is Walz's night before Harris's big moment on Thursday.
Thank you, Tony. I think that
got me again.
Yeah, there were a lot of very emotional moments in that evening, especially if your politics and your vision of America is reflected in a lot of what you saw last night. I see Gordon says, thank you for the super sticker, Gordon, for the 10 spot. Appreciate that.
Big shout out.
Isn't Trump going to be sentenced next month? So saying lock him up is appropriate. I don't know if it's appropriate. I mean, it just, again, it's one of those chants that it comes out of the lock her up thing, which I thought was so, I want to say rude, but that's the wrong word. It's just
outrageous.
Thank you. I mean, it was about the email claims and about, this is a guy who,
ugly. It was ugly. Thank you.
That's a much better word. So, and anyway,
Kim, how are you?
Anyway, the deal is that they're shouting a lot of things, and obviously that's become a chorus in America now. The lock, fill in the blank up, lock him up, lock her up, lock them up.
Yeah.
So maybe you're right. Maybe it's okay. Now, what happened at CNN last night? I guess there was a...
I wasn't watching CNN. I was on ABC.
Bakari Sellers rejecting a report that the Democratic National Convention committed a cardinal sin by pushing President Biden's speech back so late because of scheduling delays. Peter Baker saying, he's the New York Times guy, the Democrats jumbled their homage plan with a slate of speeches that went so long that Mr. Biden was pushed out of prime time. This is what I was saying before.
Yeah.
Democrats were so far behind schedule that they had to scrap a video tribute to the outgoing president. But CNN dismissed the report and blasted Baker. It's weird to me that people who are so smart and so good at their jobs just mess up so glaringly. That's what Bakari Sellers said. Peter misses the simple fact that these speeches live online forever. There are clips that are playing on social media and TikTok, he said. They're not traditional means and methods by which people consume these speeches anymore. Just because you give a speech at 11:30 does not mean this is not, it does not mean, then he goes, this is not 1940 where people have to gather around the radio, Peter, and actually listen to it. Well, this is what I was saying at the beginning of the show, that these things have a virality. They get played in the punditry verse, and they some of us take them in real time, but most people probably do not.
I ding you for virality.
Oh, thank you. I'll take it. I do think that you want to try to produce a show where you can get everybody in that you intended to get in. Yeah. If you're bumping James Taylor, I think they bumped Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I mean, these are, now you can tell me, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is no big loss to bump her. Okay, we can argue over who was bumped appropriately and not, but when you have to start bumping people, it just speaks to the fact that maybe you've packed, 10 pounds into a 5-pound bag. That's all I'd say. But it happens. And as I say, of all people, am quite sympathetic to that.
It shouldn't have happened to President Biden because we know that when he speaks, he's better earlier, right? He said that. He's like, when I'm tired, when it gets late, I start, stuttering a little more, whatever, what have you. So they shouldn't have done that to him.
Well, we couldn't start with the Blue Plate special at 5 o'clock, Kim. We had to, he's got to cap the night, so he's got to stay up late. So I don't know. I thought that, will they run on time tonight, Mr. Predicto? Will the Democrats run on time?
Yes, without question.
Mr. Predicto says they will run on time tonight.
Nice. I don't think I've ever heard him say like a definitive yes.
I don't think I have either.
Wow.
He's really...
I didn't know he had it in him.
Mr. Predicto is very, very sure of himself. Did I have anything? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, they didn't expect Kamala Harris to speak last night. She wasn't supposed to.
It was a surprise appearance. That's correct.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool. And it was nice in that it was a tribute to Joe Biden as well. So I think she kind of felt like she wanted to do that.
Yeah. Is it a problem that some speakers went over their allotted time? I don't know if they did go over their allotted time. I think what happened, Louis, was that there was so much applause and cheering in the hall that extended these speeches. I mean, witness the, best example of that probably was Joe Biden, where he gets 4 minutes of applause. But there was, there were examples of that throughout the night where essentially speeches are punctuated by long periods of applause. So I think that, I think most of these speeches are vetted. They're read ahead of time and for time, so they know how long everything is. It's not a complete surprise. That Jamie Raskin doesn't get up there and they go, geez, the guy went 4 minutes. I mean, that's how long his speech was supposed to be. So, and I guess Jamie Raskin lost prompter at one point and was tried to launch a kind of a sidewinder toward Trump, and it went awry because of the loss of the prompter. Jamie Raskin is usually so very good, but when you lose your prompter, I guess that's what happens.
He had that look that I've had in the past, that deer in the headlights look, where you have your screen goes blank and there's nothing in front of you. Yeah, I mean, that's not a look you would ever give, because you're fine with or without the prompter. But man, when it went out, you could tell like there's a problem.
Well,
Oops.
when you have specific remarks that are supposed to hit specific verbiage, I think it's hard, regardless of how comfortable you are speaking extemporaneously. Doug Emhoff.
Ding it.
Extemporaneously. Yeah, is a ding word. Doug Emhoff shrugged his shoulders as if to say, I didn't know that Kamala was going to speak, says Katie Lynch. Interesting. Well, that's a little bit of night one. Do we have anything else, Tony, related to that? I think I actually have a chunk of Trump that's quick that I want to get to as well. I thought Raphael Warnock was brilliant. Thank you, Julie. He was brilliant. Wow, you talk about a guy who's an orator, who made powerful comments, and it was spot on. I thought Raphael Warnock was great. And I thought the Kamala Harris friend and her mother who came up, they were brilliant. I mean, really brilliant. And I really felt that there's something there that cut through, and it was along the lines of Kamala Harris has lived it. She comes from the middle class. I think they said it, from the middle class to the middle class, meaning she is someone, and I'm mangling perhaps a bit of what they said, but they made the point that she comes from the middle class and now wants to take care of the middle class. I think that is a really powerful message, especially playing up against the Republicans. They play themselves as popular. And again, when I say Republicans, I'm talking about the Trump MAGA party. Please, those of you who are registered GOP, don't get your backs up. I'm talking about the MAGA Republicans who play to a populism that was really successful in 2016. But it's not reflective of who Trump is. Trump hasn't been to a grocery store maybe ever, and he certainly isn't someone who has any connection to the middle class apart from his rallies and chants and selling merch to them and selling his NFTs to them and selling his Bibles to them and selling his other stuff. He could care less about the middle class. Look at the tax cuts. They affect the wealthiest individuals and benefit the wealthy most completely. Look at what he said to Elon Musk, where he applauded Elon Musk for getting rid of those workers who were attempting to unionize at the Tesla plant. So Kamala Harris, to the degree that she comes from the middle class and is speaking to the middle class, I think that's a message that does resonate better. Trump is no Republican, says Agoff. Well, he's the new Republican Party. Trump is trying to tell people it's bad for Harris to laugh. That is, that's a weird thing. Well, he's not a big laugher, so it's probably bad for anybody to laugh when they. He likes laughing at things. Anyway, we divert. That is your Bowling with Biden.
That's all for this edition.
There's your new leader.
But join us again next time for Bowling with Biden.
Tony, you'll edit that so somehow it's coherent.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I hope you took copious notes. I do have... Copious is a ding word, come to think of it. Thank you for being here. We are a crowd-funded show. If you so desire, you can be part of the crowd that funds us. Many ways to do it. PayPal and Patreon. We're themarkthompsonshow.com. TheMarkThompsonShow.com. You get the in there because you just put MarkThompsonShow.com. It goes to a ventriloquist site, which is really, and I wish that I had some ventriloquism skills, but I do not.
Christian ventriloquist.
A Christian, he's a Christian ventriloquist, which to me is even better. I mean, I just love everything about it. Again, it doesn't help our show.
You've got puppets.
I've got puppets, and I've got the.
There's puppetry involved in this.
It's true, and those who missed it, I do have the Kamala Harris finger puppet, which I got long before she was ever even considered as a presidential candidate. I had my Kamala Harris finger puppet. I did want to mention, though, that you can also find links to Patreon and PayPal under all our videos. There it is, the website, themarkthompsonshow.com. That's our website. So there are click-throughs to everything there. I have Jefferson Graham on Tech Tuesday. I'll get to him in a moment. But before I do, give me one more drop of politics. I want to do it. Here's your chunk of Trump.
Open wide.
Ready?
Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
Tony, what did I send you? I think I sent you 2 significant clips. They are brief, but the first one is RFK Jr.'s running mate, Nicole Shanahan, wealthy contributor. I mentioned that because I think it was in no small measure a reason that she's on the ticket with RFK Jr. It takes money to appear on ballots in different states, and it takes money to run for president in the United States. RFK Jr.'s running mate, Nicole Shanahan, essentially hatching the plan that might be hatched now that RFK Jr. is flagging in the polls. Here is a bit of the interview. It's very short.
You know, there's 2 options that we're looking at, and one is staying in, forming that new party, but we run the risk of a Kamala Harris and Waltz presidency because we draw votes from Trump, or we draw somehow more votes from Trump, or we walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump, and you know, we walk away from that and we explain to our base why we're making this decision. Not easy.
Clearly.
Yeah, not an easy decision.
Now,
there you go. So that really does say the quiet part out loud. They are Trumpies, ultimately, rather than supporters of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, to the point that they're worried if they remain on the ticket that they take votes from Trump and that Harris prevails. It's a remarkable thing, given one other thing. Can anybody think of why this is particularly bizarre? Because of something that just happened in the last 10 days. Anything? Here is the reason. In the last 10 days, RFK Jr. has petitioned Kamala Harris to be in her cabinet.
Yep.
So you're telling me that you're petitioning Kamala Harris to be in her cabinet, and yet your running mate is talking openly about a plan by which you would drop out of the race to ensure, or better, in some way support Donald Trump prevailing and Kamala Harris losing. It's a bad look, an odd look at very best. The other thing I wanted you to see was new reporting out of the Middle East on Donald Trump attempting to kneecap the Middle East deal, the truce that they're trying to get going. Why? For the same reason that he kneecapped the immigration deal. Politics. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah. We know that Secretary of State Blinken is over there right now working with Netanyahu. The reporting is that former President Trump is on the phone with the Prime Minister of Israel, urging him not to cut a deal right now because it's believed that would help the Harris campaign.
Yeah, that
so you're playing with human life.
Exactly.
For political expediency. You're doing it with migrants, and now you're doing it with the victims of war. Are you serious?
That's your chunk of Trump.
That's it for this edition.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
But make sure to join us again next time
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
for another chunk of Trump.
Smash the like button like a boss. Thumbs up. It helps
Smash
us. Costs
it with
you
your iron
nothing.
rod.
If you're new here, please subscribe to our show and hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever we drop a new video. It's great to have you in the mix. Jefferson Graham Tech Tuesday follows Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show. The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on. Right on. By the way, our end of summer Zoom meetup, it's a virtual meetup. It's the best kind. You can just kick it up and hang out. You don't even have to be on camera if you don't want to be. 2 glorious hours, wall-to-wall gloriousness. Special guests. Spencer Christian's going to be there. Nikki Maduro is coming. The full gang will be here. Tony and Kim, Jim Awala from ABC News, the former senior correspondent there and White House correspondent for years. He can speak openly about politics, but we don't have to talk politics at all. We can talk about anything. It's kind of a fun thing, and we still have a few spots available. The first 25 people lock up spots. We limit the numbers because we just want a chance to visit with people. If you get too many people involved, it gets too hard to visit. Sign up at our PayPal, a $50 donation, because it's a fundraiser for the show. You'll lock up a spot with a $50. Note when you make the donation on PayPal that it's for the meetup. Just put meetup or something like that. And then drop us an email at mtsmeetup@gmail.com and say, I'm in for the meetup. And we'll send you a link next week. Again, $50 donation to the PayPal page, which is the link is under all our videos. It's on our main website. And then note meetup, then RSVP mtsmeetup@gmail.com. And we will see you on the 29th. It is
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yes, it's a Thursday night, 6:30 to 8:30, 2 hours. That's Pacific time. We have people joining from the East Coast, and we may have, so last time we had somebody joining from Thailand. I don't know exactly what the time difference is that way, but wherever you are, it's 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., August 29th, which is next Thursday, a week from this coming Thursday, and it's 2 glorious hours with your friends here, and we look forward to spending time with you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Right on. How about it? This guy does Photo Walks TV. He was the longtime tech correspondent for USA Today. Joins us on Tuesdays when he's not traveling the rest of the world. He's the great Jefferson Graham, everyone. Hello, Jeff.
I can join you from Manhattan Beach, for
Yeah,
Zoom
I would.
session.
I'd love for you to, if you can drop through. I don't like to prevail upon you because I know you're very busy. But if you can join us, is this a commitment that you're making now?
Yeah, I'm committing right now. Yes.
All right. So Jeff will join us next Thursday.
And may I say,
yes, sir.
This is the best look I've ever seen. I don't know what you did, but this is incredible.
Well, let me say to what you say that this is the best look that you ever have had. How about I like to follow a compliment with another compliment. That's the Hollywood way.
Yeah. And let's have lunch, right?
Will Jeff actually show up, Mr. Predicto, at our, make sure Mr. Predicto's on. He is in a resting phase a lot of the time. Will Jefferson Graham actually show up at our meetup, Mr. Predicto?
Now is not the right time to tell you.
Oh, wow. Oh, so you may dance out. We'll have to see.
No, I'll be there.
All right, if you say so. Jefferson Graham, it was World Photography Day yesterday.
Yes.
And I'm curious because photography is so much a key part of your life. Photo Walks TV is on YouTube, and photowalkstv.com is your home website. So photos, exactly that, so much, and photography, so much a part of your world. Tell me about what you shared with your audience on World Photography Day.
Well, what I'm sharing with you right now is that World Photography was great. It was a way to celebrate the art of photography, what we see, what sticks out at us, memories that we make together of things that we actually see. And it made me think about the Google Pixel and how which is the Google phone that is rivaling the iPhone and the Galaxy. And I can't recommend it, because they have so many AI tools that they're throwing that are basically destroying what we know of as photography. And I could run them down. Basically, you can erase people out of the shot. You can change their expression. You can, this is the worst one, is that you could take a picture of two people and then add a third person in later. And it sounds nice in theory, but it's not photography. It's not photography. If everything you see on Facebook is Google Pixel AI, you're not looking at photographs. You're looking at something else. And so I'm going to be an old fogey, cranky old guy here and just say I'm not happy with it. At least what they're doing with the AI stuff on the Apple and the Samsung platform is they are not changing what photography is.
This is a really interesting kind of fork in the road, because AI, as you suggested, can now be in our phones and at our disposal and able to manipulate and edit these photographs. So what was considered something you'd need sort of Adobe Photoshop skills for, you can now do, you're saying, essentially with basic skills on your phone or on your device.
Well, all you have to do is take your finger and go like that, and you could take off a light pole, which is fine. I do it all the time. But, for instance, I used to work at USA Today, as you mentioned. USA Today, the LA Times, New York Times, AP, Reuters, they all have rules about photography, which is that it has to be real. You can't, if Mark, for instance, if I took a picture of you and I retouched you and I took things out of here and took away some lines or whatever, or me or whatever, and I handed it in, they'd say, no, you broke the rules. You're fired. So there are ethical rules in newspapers and magazines on what you can do and what you can't do. And I think it's okay to take out light poles. I don't think it's okay to have these tools from Google that will merge all your group shots together and make them an algorithm. What's the word? Amalgam? Basically taking 5 photos, person here and person here and a person here, and then
it's like an amalgamation of everything.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the word.
Yeah,
it's
there you
just
go.
It's altering reality to the point where it's just too unreal. To your friend who you were just talking about, Donald Trump, decided to put some fake pictures of Taylor Swift up, and as if she was supporting him, which she's not. She's not. She's not publicly supported him, and it's just so easy now to make these fake photos. So I'm just concerned on World Photography Day on what's happening to photography.
You see the drift away from real photography toward what is the photography that you just do by stealing an image here, and when I say stealing, just taking an image from maybe in your phone, you own them, but still to the point that, you've created a different image that doesn't actually reflect in any way what was actually going on. It's interesting, we'll move on, but it's interesting because it's philosophical, and I'm not surprised that somebody who's a photographer has an objection. But on the other hand, all these kinds of enhancements, like the sky didn't really look like that, the color of the water isn't really that green or blue or whatever, that horse really left the barn 10 years ago or more.
That's fine. That's fine. So I edit every picture I do, and before I post it. So will I darken the sky? Yes. Will I boost the colors? Yes. But I'm working with the basic bones of what is real. Right? And I'm just enhancing it a little bit. I'm not throwing different people into the photo. I'm not putting a green alien into the shot and saying, isn't that cute? I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, that's an interesting example, because I think you will begin to see more Loch Ness Monster photos and more UFO pictures, because you now will be able to manipulate these pictures. Last thing before I move on, is there a way to identify whether the photo's been doctored or not?
It's really hard. You just have to be diligent and ask a lot of questions. If Trump says that Taylor Swift is supporting him, type in Taylor Swift supports Donald Trump into Google, and you'll get the response, and you'll find out whether it's true or not. Now, I will say, I don't know if you have a clip of this, it was really funny, the clip of Donald Trump and Kamala Harris walking hand in hand as lovers down the road and having a romantic kiss and more.
I just sent that to you, Tony. The link, if you check your email, you can just click on the link and you'll see it right away.
It's also so outlandish that it's just funny.
Yeah, and that was so outlandish, as you say, that it clearly falls into the category of almost parody. You know when you're looking at it that it's not real. Right. But there were some subsequent pics of Trump, and you see how they're manipulations of Trump and Taylor Swift that you begin to see washed together with, there it is. Then this is absolutely crazy. But
little Baron, their little child, the little orange-haired child. I don't know if you got that part.
Yeah. So that is, as I say, it's comedic, and you just know it's comedic. The last thing I wanted to ask you about or just mention was the thing that we talked about at the beginning of the show, because we were getting different reactions to the way in which people are taking in the DNC. There were complaints about, the anchors speak too much, or I like watching it in this forum, I like watching it in that forum. YouTube is clearly the Mac Daddy streamer, right? I mean, this is the way in which more and more people are taking in the DNC and these conventions generally. Can you speak to this?
Yeah, we have spoken on the show over the last 2 years, about cutting the cord. And you'll say to me, how do you watch CNN? And I say, I don't need it. I could just watch the streaming ABC channel or the streaming NBC channel or the streaming CBS channel. So, I turned them on last night for the DNC, and it's Anchor Babble. And there's speakers on the floor and people are screaming and yelling, and it's Anchor Babble. So we switched and we started watching PBS, publicly funded television. And that was Anchor Babble too. ABC News was the worst because in the middle of Hilary Clinton's speech, they cut it and they went to Anchor Babble. So then I turned on YouTube and I went to the DNC feed. And it was just, they showed the convention. You want to see the speakers? You watch the speakers. I don't need to hear Anchor Babble. Never wanted to hear it. I mean, I like hearing the commentary afterwards, but not during. So I got the DNC feed, which was perfect. It was a camera pointed at the stage, and it was really good. And YouTube was where it was at. I also found, believe it or not, an MSNBC live feed on YouTube. Didn't have to, because I don't have cable, but I had the live feed with no commentary. It was just pure, unadulterated, the speakers. So it was so much better.
Yeah, I mean, there are all now these options where you can take in this content in different ways. I was trying to at least provide a reasonable argument, I felt, for why this Anchor Babble, as you call it, is defensible. I mean, these are people... I like your notion or the implied notion that they wait until the speech is over to do this, but it's kind of like you're watching this with people who are experienced political reporters and journalists, and their opinions and their reflections, even in real time, are worth something. It's like watching it on the couch with somebody who is a really politically knowledgeable friend. So I try to take it in that way. You can call it Anchor Babble. Sometimes it is Anchor Babble, and if it's over somebody's speech, then you're right. It probably is less defensible.
I love Donna Brazile, love James Carville. I want to hear them. David Brooks, come on, pour it on. But not during Hillary Clinton's speech.
Sure. No, I think that's inappropriate. Check out Jefferson Graham. First of all, he'll be joining us for the Meetup a week from Thursday, August 29th at 6:30. And it's 2 hours, Jeff. You don't have to be there for the whole 2 hours. We love that you'll drop in for a few minutes. A lot of people are just stopping through. But you can also find him on Photo Walks TV. Photo Walks TV features all these tips when it comes to all things photos and all things walking and taking photos. Photo Walks TV is his YouTube series. Love our visits with you, and I look forward to next time. Thank you, Jefferson Graham.
Thank you, Mark.
Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Tell me what is happening now. I ask you, Kim and Tony. I've got, I believe, do I have David waiting?
I think we have Mr. Johnston waiting, so I think we should bump news to after his segment.
I love that plan. I love that plan. Smash the like button if you would. It's a little thing on YouTube. It helps in the algorithm.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Yeah, smash it with your iron rod. And give us, it costs you nothing, and it does help us in that, as I say, in the algorithms of YouTube and just how things are factored for the show. Now, without any further delay, this guy is a Pulitzer Prize winner, a brilliant investigative journalist. I'm going to find, when we do a video with David K. Johnston, we have this conversation. We'll drop it as a video, and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, actually, in many cases, see that video. And I try to go through as many of those comments as I can. It gives me a sense of what people are thinking and reacting to. And increasingly, I'm seeing things along the lines of, I picked up David K. Johnston's book, and I love it. And I saw a lot of that based on the last conversation. And I always tell you, you can pick up any of his books and needle drop them. Just crack them open anywhere, and you get great stories, particularly when it comes to his last, I believe, 3 books. Making of Donald Trump, The Big Cheat, I think, is another. And the third, you can tell me, David, what it is. Anyway, there it is, The Big Cheat, David K. Johnston. And there were specific comments about people loving The Big Cheat. So I encourage you to pick that up. It's not a long book, and it's a great read. In any case, now he joins us regularly on Tuesdays. We're so proud and honored to have him join us. He's David K. Johnston, everybody.
Hello, Mark.
David.
Hello, folks. By the way, the book you missed was the book in the middle. It's even worse than you think.
It's even worse than you think. Always the best titles, too.
What he was doing to the administration.
Yeah. I on this week of the DNC, I'm reluctant to start with Trump, but just because you are the dean of Trumpology, I will ask you if you saw him try to explain the comments he made about the Congressional Medal of Honor versus I wonder if you can speak to that entire mess that he stepped into.
Well, I did not see the interview on that, but I saw his original comments about it. And in fact, went and looked him up on the internet to make sure that I heard them correctly, because they're just cockamamie nonsense. Donald, I mean, this goes to a fundamental truth about Donald. He doesn't know anything. And this is part of the thing that brought it through. And why did he speak so highly of the widow Adelson, whose husband, whom I knew a little bit, was this multi-billionaire casino magnate? The Adelsons had his and her jumbo 747s as their personal jet.
I didn't know that. That's
his and her 747s. Hers was ruined in a curious and inexplicable accident that allowed them to collect the insurance for the plane when it was about to undergo some big renovations and updates. The Donald's idea of an award is so cockamamie. You may remember that some admiring old man who'd gotten a Purple Heart gave it to Donald, and Donald said, "Oh, he always wanted one of these."
That's right.
Has the concept of what those are about, except, it's an award. And remember, he keeps telling everybody that he's this champion golfer who's won, 22 golf championships, all at his own clubs. And there is, if folks want to go look for it, a video shot recently in which by a pro who was playing with him, he misses by a lot, shot after shot after shot on the putting green. He's not a champion golfer any more than he's, the greatest genius of all time, and the world's greatest expert on taxes, and the world's greatest expert on, I think it's 21 other subjects. It's just all fraud, top to bottom. And if you don't understand things like duty and honor and valor, then you end up doing what Donald does.
He was talking about the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which he gave, as you say, to these wealthy donors, the Adelsons. Sheldon Adelson has passed away. Now his wife is there, and she continues to be a supporter. And when I say supporter, I mean writing huge checks to support Donald Trump. And so as he was acknowledging her, he said, oh, this, again, Presidential Medal of Freedom that honors civilians is, and he used the words, quote, much better than the Medal of Honor given to service members. I mean, it is, it's almost grotesque.
He also made the comment about the people who get the Medal of Honor, they're either dead or they've been hit so many times with bullets that they look awful.
Yeah,
you know, exactly. It has nothing to do with why we honor some people for their extraordinary bravery on a battlefield.
Sure. And John Kelly, who is his, I think, the longest chief of staff to serve with Trump, the retired Marine general, just, you know, recoiled at this. And of course, he said, think of Normandy, Iwo Jima, Vietnam, or Fallujah. The Medal of Honor is earned. It's not won, it's earned. Yeah.
What? Iwo Jima, Fallujah? What?
It's remarkable, though, David, that through all of this, somehow he does have the support of a lot of the military. Maybe you can help me distinguish the part of the military that he gets support from. Maybe it's more the young guys who don't really look at this stuff, or what is it? The macho?
A part of it appears to be this creation of a false image that he's a tough guy, because he's not. He's a pussycat. But beyond that, I continue to be mystified. I mean, I understand why people support Donald if they're racists, even if they don't realize they're racist. It makes perfect sense. That's easy to identify. And I can understand people who do not understand anything about why their economics are not what they would like, especially if they're in the bottom half or 2/3 of the country, and they believe his rhetoric because they don't know that it's actually harmful to them. The policies he's done are harmful to him. But I really have a very hard time understanding how people, once they know he's basically been a criminal his whole life, he's been found to be a rapist. There are 24 women who say he raped them, convicted of felonies, serving liquor to 12, 13, and 14-year-old children, as I describe in my 1992 book, that Trump's a little less than half of it, and my biography of him, The Making of Donald Trump, and other just what should be disqualifying activities to be on a local town council. They still embrace him. And it says that our political system is based on Enlightenment era principles of rational debate about the best available information. And the concerns of the framers of our Constitution were that the mob, as some of them referred to it, the rabble, would be subject to emotional manipulation. And this appears to be what's happened here. We have a large segment of people in America who slept through junior high school civics, who don't understand how the world works, basically. And they see him as their champion who will stand up for them, even though the few things he actually did in office were contrary to their interests. And of course, that's why I suspect Donald always says of the poorly educated, I love you. We love you. We love the poorly educated. Yeah, because then you don't understand what he's really doing.
Well, when we speak of populism and the tremendous success that he had in 2016 as sort of this populist candidate, I was saying before, in watching the DNC, the idea somehow, and there was Kamala Harris's friend and her mom who spoke for a bit. And I thought that worked just because it spoke to her background, where she's come from. She comes from the middle class. She is the middle class. And so her ability to connect with the middle class, you would think, would be greater than this billionaire guy who essentially has done nothing but take advantage of the middle class.
Well, they did a very good job last night of introducing her and telling about who she was, and particularly how she effectively rescued her schoolmate who was being raped by her father-in-law and got her moved into her house. They went on in a number of the talks way too long. Biden should not have gone on 11 p.m. at night, but much earlier he gave quite a good speech for someone who is departing the stage. But a lot of people won't see it that way. They won't see it that way partly because of the color of her skin, partly because they'll say, well, she's a radical. She went to demonstrations as a young person, as if there's something wrong with that. Our Constitution explicitly enshrines the right to protest and complain. And in fact, I've said throughout my career that it's the duty of Americans to criticize their government. After all, it's our government. It's not, King George's government. It's ours. And it's a fiction we create for our benefit. And of course, we should be criticizing it. The job of the President of the United States, in significant part, is to be criticized.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think that activism would be celebrated on some level, but everything now is weaponized in one way or another. This is
all
interesting.
day today, Mark, I've been getting tweets, emails sent to me, texts, things like that, about she is the most far left radical of all times. Her economic plan will destroy America. Donald said that, so they're just parroting it, but we don't know what her economic plan is. Right. She's indicated she supports the fundamentals of what Biden's been doing, which is investing taxpayer money in those things that will create jobs and bring jobs home from offshore, which they've been very successful at so far, and they're just getting going.
Yeah, and I think it's actually politically clever not to get into too many specifics yet. I actually think her campaign has done a really good job of managing the moment, managing the enthusiasm, playing it, drafting, if you will, that, the slipstream of enthusiasm. And then, when you come out against price gouging, this kind of thing, price gouging actually lands with the American public, even though there's a technical explanation or a technical term gouging refers to. When you get nailed by Ticketmaster and the airlines for baggage fees and for all the add-ons, these are the things that I think American people feel like, hey, I was gouged on this. They're taking advantage of their leverage. So I really liked that play.
And if you just pay attention to the hourly 2-minute newscast on a radio station while you're commuting to or from work, one of the things is that all sorts of companies are reporting huge profits out of line with the past. They are saying we can't afford workers. In a few cases, they're laying off thousands of workers, but they're spending money to buy back their own stock. And this is because the system is encouraging this kind of greed. And that's what it is. I mean, if you once you have about $300 million in this country, which means you can have your own private jet and you can have a pretty good sized yacht, there isn't anything else money can buy you. And yet there are people who they're like Donald, who, their claim of wealth is who they are. It's not about the substance of what they have done. Martin Luther King Jr. in the March on Washington, which Donald says he got as big an audience, bigger than Martin Luther King, of course, said that we should be judged by the content of our character. Donald is part of a whole movement that's been around now since the 80s, in which we judge people by the contents or presumed contents, in Donald's case, of their wallet. That's not a measure of anything.
It's odd, again, that this guy who has those values, and actually those values are played out in virtually everything that he's done in his life, has, again, this popular appeal. But that seems to be waning. Now, David, what about the politics of the moment? That he does seem to be losing tremendous momentum. He's not the new kid, the new shiny object anymore. Kamala Harris is the new shiny object, really. And the press, you can argue, is treating her that way. What do you see happening short term and over the next few months with Trump?
Well, absolutely. Donald has spent so much time reinforcing his ties to his base and not building a coalition. And that's what you do to win elections, is here's a group of people support me. Now, how do I get more people to support me? And Donald has no capacity to do that. So you're seeing the diehard Trumpers stick with him. I'm not sure that she's been treated lightly. I mean, I've read a great deal about her. Certainly the New York Times, the Washington Post, USA Today, a couple of other papers have had serious pieces examining, her career. She benefits primarily, I think, from relieving people of Trump fatigue. this constant doom and gloom, and America's in the toilet and it's terrible and all of that. First of all, who goes around saying that about their country who wants to be president? If there's a problem, you point to the problem and say it doesn't equal our greatness.
But it worked for him, to be fair. It worked for him in 2016. I think he's playing the hit still.
Yes, it did. But this isn't 2016. It might be, as some people are observing, 2008 again. But Harris provides people who were just can't stand Joe Biden for some reason with a way to move away from Trump. But the most important thing she's doing is getting people who probably were not going to vote to turn out and to donate. The amount of money that she's raising from small donors is just extraordinary. We've got well over 1 million people now who there's no record of them ever donating. Every time you donate to a campaign, the political consultants, in addition to the government records, gather all this information. And they can look up right away, well, who did Mark Thompson give to in what years on what issues in their databases. So this enormous outpouring of support that we haven't seen before is, I think, indicative of people saying, let's move on. Let's talk about our future, not about our past. I think that can be a very winning argument. And I think if the Democrats do this right, they can control the House, the Senate, and the White House. And if they do, even if it's with a 1-vote margin in the Senate and a 5-vote margin in the House, or I think they'll do much better than that in the House, they better have a game to really act quickly, to pass a series of laws, protect reproductive rights, to invest further in education and infrastructure, to overturn this cockamamie Supreme Court decision that president is immune.
David, just to follow up on that, they could do that legislatively, and it would take precedent legally over the Supreme Court decision. That is,
it depends on exactly the issue and how it's framed.
Okay.
Some things don't require constitutional amendments. For example, as I've long advocated, expanding the Supreme Court from 9 to 15, because there are 15 subordinate courts that are supervised. That's the reason for the logic of that number. That's simply an act of Congress. And then unless you're really dumb, you appoint centrist judges known for their scholarship. People have the kind of deep, super deep knowledge that we see in Ketanji Jackson Brown, the newest justice. And not people who will turn out to be like, if you're old enough to remember, William O. Douglas, one of the most liberal members of the court ever. And they're certainly not going to, under a Kamala Harris presidency, going to appoint right-wingers. But people who are, who have a clear scholarship and not an agenda, which is what the Federalist Society has given us, is 6 members of the Supreme Court who have a political agenda and are using the court to advance their political agenda. So there are a number of things they can do, and I think it'll be very important for them to act and act quickly. But for the rest of this campaign, you're going to see fairly limited, probably, details about what my plan is. I mean, it's one of the things that hurt Hilary Clinton in 2016, as I mentioned on your show before. I have a 97-point plan and blah, 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 and footnote 15. And it just doesn't sell. You got to be much more visceral. And she's out selling, we can have a better future. We can get past this period. We can make the economy continue to grow. That's a winning message if people believe it.
Yeah, I have been saying it since the beginning. The people who are pounding on her for policy and the people who are pounding on her for a sit-down interview are people who do sit-down interviews for a living and people who parse policy for a living because it's the punditry. The public, as you suggested, they vote on gut. And she has caught something. It's a combination of these things that you speak of, a hope for the future, not living in the past. And she's been smart enough, when I say she, her and her team, to assemble a strategy in a short time to speak to that. Boy, if they took both Senate and House, ran the table, that would be extraordinary. And then you'd need to suspend the filibuster to do some of the things that you're speaking of.
Yeah, well, filibuster rules used to be that you had to stand there like Jimmy Stewart in the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and hold the floor. The rules are now you just announce you're going to do that. Now your filibuster blocks discussion of a bill. We're going to keep the filibuster. Let's go back to the old rules where you had to put up. The issue I think can do very well for Kamala Harris is her pointing out how Donald Trump wants not only another huge tax cut for the rich and corporations, the one we have right now, we're financing with borrowed money. The deficit we have right now, the annual budget deficit, which has been coming down, would come down about a quarter in size if we weren't borrowing money so that people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and big corporations don't have to pay as much or anything in taxes under the Trump rules. And bringing back the child tax credit at the level we had during the pandemic, it lifted half of poor children out of poverty. We're the only modern country. There are basically 34 modern countries, 36, depending on how you want to count them. We're the only one of them that doesn't have subsidies for children. I don't generally like subsidies. My book, Free Lunch, is exposing corporate subsidies that were hidden until I wrote about them. And people didn't know that, Walmart builds its distribution centers and a lot of its stores with your tax dollars, not with their investors' dollars. Guess how wonderfully profitable that makes them. But we're the only major country that is not doing things to help parents. And there's very good research by a professor at the University of Chicago's Booth School. That's a business school. It is a school well known for its right-wing tilt. And I went to the University of Chicago for a couple of quarters long ago, where he shows that for every dollar we invest in a child from conception through about 6 months, you get a lifetime compounded return of 7%. You got an investment will always make 7%. Go buy it and put all your money in it. And by the time you're my age, you'll be well off.
Sure.
We need to be investing in our children. We shouldn't be underpaying school teachers and getting rid of arts and music and drama so that we can cut school spending in this country, or we're going to fall behind the rest of the world. And Kamala Harris is a product of two professors, right? Two. Her mother's dead now. Her mother was a sociologist. And her father, who is a full professor at Stanford University. Not exactly an easy place to get hired at. And she grew up in this household where, in addition to standing up for people without power, rescuing that girl from the raping stepfather, she also understood that knowledge is crucial to economic growth in the world we live in today. This wasn't so true 1,000 years ago, but it's certainly true now. And we got to end this period of disrespecting education.
Yeah, I love that you said this, because the way science has been disrespected, expertise has been disrespected. We point to these universities that if Harvard came by and said, hey, you know what, we're going to give your child a full scholarship to our university, you'll go, great. You wouldn't go, oh my God, those elite East Coast universities, I don't want my child to go to Harvard, or whatever. These are increasingly, we could get into higher education and a conversation about that, David. I'd love to have it with you now that you're a professor in Rochester. But I'm also, and you've had so many various involvements in higher education along the way. But my point is simply, I love that you mentioned that maybe we get back to really trying to educate our populace. It's crazy that we don't.
And being demanding as to what you learn in a rounded way. One of the things I love about Rochester Institute of Technology, which is number 3 in the number of STEM graduates it produces. It's like MIT or Caltech or Rensselaer. It's a school for scientists, engineers. You have to take a full load of liberal arts education. You have to learn literature. The journalism students that I'll teach in some of my classes, I don't expect them to become journalists, but the skills that you can learn in journalism, how to find facts, how to check those facts, how to tell them in a concise and precise manner, those are useful in any career. And one of the things I'm most happy about at RIT is this tradition that, yeah, you're going to learn arts. We have, RIT has a huge dance program, for example, and all sorts of art programs, textile art, because it complements the kind of education. If you turn out people who simply went to medical school or engineering school and have no broader understanding of the world, you're shortchanging the student and you're shortchanging the society.
So well said. I saw a comment, and I wanted to get your comment on the comment. This is from Wes, who says, so to me, it's not her politics. I'm socially liberal, but kind of fiscally conservative, but the threat to our democracy is greater than political views. Thank you, Wes, for that. He's talking about Kamala Harris, obviously. Yeah. There are a couple of things going on here. One is the completely flawed notion that the GOP is better with the economy and on things that involve economics than are the Democrats. It's an utter...
And all the data, I've written innumerable pieces where I've gone back and analyzed job creation, GDP growth, real wage growth, that is wages adjusted for inflation. And every time you have a Democrat in the White House, the performance is better. And we wouldn't expect that. Why would the stock market do better with a Democrat in the White House than a Republican? Well, because when we all prosper, when the largest share of us is getting better off, then people who own businesses can sell more goods and services. And that's so obvious. I don't understand why a lot of people don't grasp that.
It's effective branding, David, I would say. I mean, the Republicans have effectively branded themselves as fiscally responsible when they've actually been fiscally irresponsible.
Yes, and I think that's starting to come apart. I mean, one of the things Kamala Harris has done is take back the notion of who's the party promoting freedom. A party that wants to invade your doctor's office, wants to invade your body, a party that wants to tell you who you can and can't associate with, that's not a party of freedom. And she's very good about this. I mean, the 20 years she spent as a grade prosecutor, whatever case, got handed to her when she came to work, you're going to prosecute this or that felony. They're serving her very well in this election because she learned how you get 12 people to vote to convict, which is, not a light thing to do. Jurors, it's very clear from lots of research that's been done, jurors take their responsibilities seriously as long as they know that the court system is serious.
Yeah, and I think that also implicit in that is the messaging that you need to do to a jury. You need to hone your message, make it concise and powerful in order to get that conviction to which you referred, right?
Yeah. Whichever side educates the jury generally gets the outcome that they want, and the side that reacts doesn't. And what you're seeing in this election right now is Donald is having to be reactive to Kamala Harris. That alone is a very good sign that she's doing well. The polls are showing people are moving towards her, and a lot of that movement is people who weren't going to vote or people who just want to be past the Donald era. They're not thinking deeply about saving democracy. It's just like, gee, do I have to hear him whine anymore?
Well, thank you, because that was my second point about Wes's comment. The threat to our democracy is greater than political views. That's something that Biden was pushing when he was a candidate, and I always felt it was a bad thing to push. I'm not saying it's not true. There is a threat to democracy, no question about it, but I felt it was some amorphous thing that people weren't really getting. It's not. It doesn't land like pocketbook issues and like a real populist argument.
It's too, to use a phrase from my youth, pointy-headed. It does not get to people's feelings and what affects them in their everyday lives. I mean, after all, we don't want most people to spend their lives focused on what they think about the political movement any more than we want most people to spend their lives focused on crabgrass in their lawns. You want to have a broad set of experiences and tastes, and the diversity of our knowledge and our viewpoints, that's a strength, not a weakness, contrary to what Donald thinks. And in the case of this election, and the other two Donald was in, yes, there's a real serious threat to democracy, especially this time around, because people who support him saw what he didn't achieve in his 4 years and have this plan, Project 2025, which I, by the way, encourage people to go through, Mark. It is, you can download it and search it.
I mean, it's 900 pages, David. Most people are not going to go through it. Have you seen a good summary of it? I've seen a bunch of summaries. I need to post some of them here. Probably.
I have, but I'll give you one good example of how deceptive it is. They say that, you know, they're not proposing, despite public comments on videotape, to make contraception illegal. Well, what the report says is that contraceptives cannot be shipped by common carrier. And my guess is 20% of Americans know what that means and 80% don't. Let me tell you what it means. So Mark Thompson goes into the contraceptives business. You're selling IUDs and condoms and pills. So long as you have your own fleet of trucks from your factories to the doctor's offices and the drugstores, you can ship your product. But you can't call up one of the big trucking companies like Schneider and say, oh, by the way, we got a quarter truckload for you today. That's a common carrier. This is the kind of deceptive use of information that all the way through I see in Project 2025. And Trump should not be allowed to run away from this whatsoever. He endorsed it at the start. He said, these are my people. This is going to be our plan. And now he goes around saying, I have no idea what it's about. By the way, there are parts of it I like and parts I don't. Well, if you don't know what it's about, how can you know that?
Well, the other thing is the leaked ProPublica stuff, the videos where they, one after another, identify themselves as former members of the Trump White House. It's right. Laughable. I mean, everybody comes out of Trump land who's involved in Project 2025. And I just want to go back. You're suggesting that in Project 2025, there are all these loopholes by which they take away your freedoms, like contraceptive freedoms, et cetera.
They'll tell you they're not doing it, and then the practical application of their policies would take that away from you. And, you know, the reason we created this country was to choose our own destiny. We make mistakes. We live with those mistakes. But we choose, not King George and his descendants in London, and not Donald Trump as a dictator. We choose by the people we elect. And bit by bit, unevenly, we have been expanding the freedoms of people. The purpose of our Constitution is to see what happens if we ennoble the human spirit and set it free. What can we achieve? What can we achieve in arts, in politics, in philosophy, in building an economy that reduces suffering and that makes for broad prosperity? What can we do? And the world is so complex, we're never going to get it exactly optimal. But the path has been in the direction of more and more freedom. Nothing terrifies the Republican Party more than more individual freedom, even though they branded themselves as the party of freedom. And in this election, you're going to see that really challenged by Kamala Harris because of things like wanting to control reproductive rights. By the way, a strategy I just don't see as a winner for anybody under the age of about 45.
Well, that's the other thing that the new campaign, and we'll finish up here at our last minute with David K. Johnston, but the idea somehow that there's anything that would appeal to this younger generation, this younger demographic that seems to be coming forward, there's nothing that I can see in this Trump world that would really appeal to them.
Yeah, listen, if you want to go into debt to get a college education, if you want to reduce taxpayer funding on public schools, these are good policies for you, and you should vote for Trump if that's the case. Most important thing for young people to do is turn out to vote. You know, when I turned 18 in the 1960s, I couldn't vote until I was 23 because of the way the timing of lowering the voting age to 18 worked. Yeah. And after the first initial spurt, voting among people 18 to 24 fell off radically. It's come back in the last couple of elections, and hopefully will come back very large in this election. getting people turn out. By the way, the one thing I hope you and the audience watch is the Supreme Court has a case before it on whether about 40,000 Arizonans should be not allowed to vote. They followed the rules, but the state had a separate rule about ID. If you're Native American, you probably don't have a birth certificate. Many Native Americans who live on tribal lands do not have birth certificates. If you were a soldier serving overseas, how are you going to get your birth certificate? And the Republicans want to throw out these votes. Now, we don't know if the votes are going to be for Republicans or for Democrats, although clearly they wouldn't bring the case unless they thought this would hurt the Democrats. And we should pay attention to how the Supreme Court acts, because we should be expanding the voting franchise, not shrinking it. Now, this is about a federal election. In a federal election, you have to be a citizen to vote. And we can challenge you, we can prosecute you if you're not a citizen and you voted. In local elections, that doesn't apply. For example, in my school district, and I live in what was, in recent years, the highest property tax rate jurisdiction in the entire United States. We have school board budget votes every year. You don't have to be a citizen to vote in those elections. You just have to live in the school district. Because this is not about governance, it's about spending your money. Same thing in water districts. When I was a farm boy in Orange County, my grandmother got to vote. She was a citizen, but even if she wasn't, she got X number of votes based on how many acres of oranges she had on the water board policies. And the effort to shrink the franchise, to deny people their vote, is central to what the Republicans are doing, and the message you should get from that is very simple. We know we can't win in the marketplace of ideas.
Well, they cannot survive a legit election. They just can't. I mean, if everybody voted, but that's what, to your point, that's why voter turnout is so critical, and that's why voter disenfranchisement is such a massively important thing. We had last week somebody on here who is running for Georgia, the congressional seat in the 7th district in Georgia, and we talked a completely unbridled conversation about just this thing. They have it. It's high art in Georgia, as you know, to the disenfranchisement of voters. Stacey Abrams can speak to that firsthand, but. It's the other trick they have up their sleeve, because otherwise they will lose these elections, state after state and seat after seat.
Yeah. If you want to win elections, come up with what excites people, interests people, and serves their interests. And telling voters, we want you to endure larger budget deficits so that billionaires and centimillionaires can pay less in taxes and big corporations can pay less in taxes, shouldn't be a winning strategy. If it is, it's because people don't understand economics and public finance.
We'll wrap up, except to just say, you're watching this convention. The way these conventions are taken in now, David, is so different. There's the TikTok, Instagram world that sort of reconstitutes everything, and you see it in much smaller ways. I think that plays, I don't know if it plays into one favor or another, but I know that there are hundreds of TikTokers, I know this is a weird thing to consider, but at the convention for the Democrats handling social media. So I think both parties are trying to, and I know because it's this week and they're doing their convention, the Democrats are really on this. So it'll be interesting to see how this kind of all shakes out that way.
Well, every year we have new issues and new challenges. We're going to face other issues that you can see coming, but they're not here yet. I mean, one of them is going to be what happens when we have, as I teach my law students, capital D, capital G, designer genes. Right. And you want to pick what your child's going to look like instead of letting nature do it for you.
Oh, my God.
That will present legal challenges that will keep lawyers employed for many, many decades.
Yeah, isn't that true? I was trying to find, I've got so many comments about you and your writings, and I'll have them better together next time. But I love that people are going and reading your stuff, because the books you've written on Trump, and there it is, The Making of Donald Trump, and the must-reads by David K. Johnston, the Trump trilogy. But truly, the stories come right out of the chute from page one. And yeah,
Can I just leave you with one thought?
Please.
For people to. Donald this week said he's better looking than Kamala Harris. 78-year-old man compared to a 61-year-old woman, just for starters. Second, why? How misogynistic? But third, what more do you need to know about what a petty little man Donald is than he thinks that matters?
So you're saying he's not your type. Is that what you're telling me, David? Love our time together. We'll see you next week. Thank you. David K. Johnston, everybody, co-founder of DC Report and Pulitzer Prize winner. Love spending time talking to David K. Johnston. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, we had that drop sent to us by Trevor, the I'm better looking.
I'm a better looking person than Kamala.
Yeah, that was it. Right.
I'm a better looking person than Kamala.
Yeah.
I can do that.
You don't mind if I go off teleprompter?
You don't mind if I go off teleprompter for a second, do you?
I mean, when he's feeling it in front of his crowds, I think that's why he plays the hits. You know, he plays the, she's an idiot. They're all stupid. I'm smart. He plays that over and over and over again because the crowd's eating it up. But it has been pointed out by the punditry verse on the right and the left. That just doesn't get you new voters. It just gets you more fervent supporters that were already in your camp to begin with. Kim, you will tell me what we have next. Can we get to your news? Is that possible? Is Kim still with us? No? Kim's gone out for, I don't know. Well, if not, then Tony and I will continue the show.
I was trying to put myself back in, but I was pushing the wrong button.
Yeah,
Hi.
I see.
Hi, everyone. Yes, news is appropriate. Let's do it.
All right. Well, then smash the like button like a boss. Kim's news as we continue. I have a law and disorder waiting for you. It is not. I know everybody is. We've tried to look. This is a news-centric show, and obviously during this very hot political season, it's almost a politically centric show, meaning it's politics-centric, might be a better way to put it. So we talk a lot of politics, but that doesn't mean everything in the show is politics. And there are important things going on, or even just quirky, weird things going on. So we'll get to some of those with some law and disorder as we continue next. I was saying, smash the like button, Kim's news, and we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Day 2 of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago is devoted to the theme, A Bold Vision for America's Future. Former President Barack Obama and his wife Michelle are among tonight's headline speakers. Tributes for President Biden highlighted an emotional opening day at the DNC and the symbolic passing of the torch to Vice President Kamala Harris. Governor Gavin Newsom, we like to call him GovGav. Well, I like to call him GovGav. He's taking the stage on day 2 of the Democratic National Convention. He flew to Chicago yesterday. He'll be delivering the final delegate votes needed to make Vice President Harris the party's presidential nominee. She will formally accept on Thursday after giving a surprise speech last night. Out of the 4,000 plus delegates there, California sent the most of any state at nearly 500. Also speaking at the DNC, it is former Trump aide Stephanie Grisham. She is among the Republicans set to take the stage. The former White House press secretary resigned from the administration just hours after rioters stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th of 2021. In a statement, Grisham said, "While I don't agree with Vice President Harris on everything, I'm proud to be supporting her because I know she will defend our freedoms."
Wow, that's a pretty big deal.
Nobody likes her.
Okay, all right, maybe, but I will tell you that's pretty big. And the night is being led by Ana Navarro, as I'm told. She was still a registered Republican, and she's the CNN commentator. I think she's in The View for a long time too. Maybe more on that a little bit later if there's time, but. There are a lot of these Republicans who have come over to fight Trump. They see him as an existential threat to democracy and to their own personal freedoms and the freedoms of the public at large. And that, I guess, is the case with this Stephanie Grisham.
Yeah, maybe people who are putting the country first instead of politics and party first. Former President Trump is looking to counter-program the Democratic National Convention with a visit to Michigan today. He is set to speak in Howell, which is northwest of Detroit. It'll mark his first visit to this battleground state since Vice President Harris rose to the top of the Democratic ticket after President Biden dropped out of the race. So Trump in Michigan today. O.J. Simpson's longtime estate executor. Can you be a long-time estate executor? I guess if it goes on for a while. He says he needs to liquidate assets. Longtime Simpson attorney Malcolm Laverne says he needs to raise more than $269,000 to pay some of Simpson's mounting debt. He says he plans to sell off various assets and harvest some of the equity from a home in Las Vegas that OJ helped buy for his son, Justin. Dozens of school water fountains and faucets in Oakland are out of service. Nearly 1,100 were tested for lead. Almost 200 came back with levels higher than the Unified School District allows. Officials say 61, these are at schools, water faucets at schools. Officials say 61 have been fixed so far, but they're waiting to be checked. Families were notified of the results yesterday, and they learned the tests were done as far back as March. Every campus is now testing its drinking water for lead. Waymo is apologizing for its cars that just won't stop honking in a San Francisco parking lot in the middle of the night.
Kim talked to the...
Randall White, yeah.
Yeah, who is right next door, like living in the apartment right above the parking lot.
Yeah, it's been going on for 3 weeks now, pushing at least one neighbor, the one we spoke to have a live stream. A company executive joined it yesterday to explain the problem after 2 unsuccessful attempts to fix the issue with a software update. Randall White did text me and say it has gotten better, but there's still some honking there. He also said he got some free certificates from Waymo for free rides around San Francisco. So there you go. There are dozens of colleges welcoming students back with new protest rules. California State University issuing its policy last Thursday banning tent encampments and overnight demonstrations. UC campuses are doing the same. President Michael Drake sent a letter yesterday telling chancellors to enforce the changes this fall and stop anything that restricts movement like protests blocking walkways or roads. There are more changes coming to Disneyland. Critter Country is being renamed again. It started as Bear Country in the 70s. It'll now become Bayou Country to coincide with the opening of Tiana's Bayou Adventure in November, replacing Splash Mountain. The Southern California park is also updating its classic Peter Pan ride with a new scene and removing insensitive racial stereotypes and caricatures of indigenous people. So changes at Disneyland. It is becoming more common for people now to blur images of their homes on Google Maps. People are doing
actually,
this.
Courtney just spoke to me about this yesterday.
Did you guys blur?
I don't know. I said, well, do it. She said, we can do it. I said, well, they'll do it. Yeah, blur away.
And
I'd like to blur it whatever we can. Yeah.
Blur it all out.
Blur it all out.
Are doing it as a precaution against burglaries and home invasions.
Sure.
The process, they say, is simple. So users have to enter their address into the Google Maps, select Street View, go to the settings and select Report a Problem. From there, users can request Google blur portions of their house. It's unclear how long it takes to approve those changes or actually make it happen once you request it. A lot of people blurring it all out.
Wow. That's something. I don't know.
You do not know what you are talking about.
I thought it was pretty, Dr.
blurring.
Fauci, I thought it was pretty clear, actually. Go to settings and, then you do a bunch of other stuff and you unblur. You blur.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, hey, sometimes you want to keep things private. It is a little invasive. I don't know, when someone gives you an address to go to, do you Google map it and check out the house?
You don't want people looking in on you when you don't want to be looked in on.
No, you don't.
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Thank you. Jeffrey Toobin can tell you about that.
And then if you have the address, then you can see like the last time it was bought and the purchase price and the taxes paid on their house. I mean, you could just dive down the big rabbit hole there.
Sure.
Morning.
All right.
This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
Oh, I'm drinking it right now, baby.
Oh, I have the mango
Love
iced
it.
tea today, and it's good. It's good.
It's a piece of magic, baby. I am such a fan. I just don't mind telling you. Coachella Valley coffee.
Yeah,
Takes me to a
good
place.
stuff.
I'll tell you the truth. I was talking to David K. Johnston.
Yeah.
I'm always a little intimidated when I'm speaking to David K. Johnston, or nervous, or whatever it is, because he's a
Because
very
he's got that Pulitzer. Is that what
yeah
does it?
Pulitzer, and he's very smart, and
Yeah.
I really respect him, and I'm also like really excited that he's on my show.
Right.
And I wanted to take a sip of coffee because the Coachella Valley coffee is right here. And I reached over and I thought, oh, that looks rude. Like it's not really. I mean, you always see coffee and all of these talk shows, they have them, they coffee cups. But that's the power, the draw of Coachella Valley coffee. I just needed to take a
help
sip.
yourself. Just have to taste it. Must drink coffee.
Yes. Coffee, tea, the cold brew is now a regular. We make tons of the cold brew here and have it every morning. So totally. And as I told you, the cold brew is not like having coffee over ice. That's not a cold brew. This is a cold brew with tasting notes that go beyond just a basic coffee. You'll really find it special. So check it out. But definitely use the discount. I mean, use the discount code MarkT at checkout.
They have a huge selection of teas. I mean, it's hard when you look at all the list, like, oh, which one do I want?
Yeah.
So let me tell you, the best one's ginger mint, as far as I'm concerned. Ginger mint, vanilla, and I'm going to throw mango on the list now. My daughter loves is it chai tea? I always want to say kai, but it's chai.
It's chai, baby.
That. Yeah, she loves it.
Right.
Really good.
What can you tell us about the scene?
So many teas, Larry. It's hard to pick one.
What can you tell us about the scene?
CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Use the discount code.
What can you tell us about the scene?
MarkT at checkout, Larry.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
Oh, girl, baby girl, don't even play.
We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
I did everything right and they indicted me. I misspoke. I stand corrected. My words upset so many people. My bad. I'm sorry.
Y'all can all go to hell and I'm going back to Texas.
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
That was very inappropriate.
My beautiful Christians, I love you, Christians. I'm not Christian. I love you. I only like people that like me.
Put that coffee down.
Thanks, Tony. There's never been anything like this.
Yeah, you know it. I hope you saw it. Put it up there again, Tony. It's our big, glorious end of summer meetup. I'm excited. A lot of special guests. Spencer Christian is joining from the East Coast. I mean, we do it 6:30 to 8:30 Pacific time. It's a week from Thursday, the 29th. But on the East Coast, it's starting 9:30 at night. Spencer is joining us. I mentioned Spencer because he's one of the regulars. He's a big supporter of the show, and we're excited that he'll be part of our meetup. The former senior correspondent at ABC News, Jim Avila, will join us, covered the White House for years, and he's got some thoughts about the politics of America. If you want to talk politics, you can. Josh Mankiewicz from Dateline NBC said he's going to stop through. We've had a lot of people saying that they're going to be here, regulars that you know from the show, and also special guests. The first 25 people to lock up spots, you are in. Sign up at our PayPal. A $50 donation, because it is a fundraiser for the show, locks you up a spot. You can note when you make the $50 donation on PayPal, note Meetup. That's all you have to say. Then we know you're there for the meetup, and we'll lock you the seat. And then RSVP by email, mtsmeetup@gmail.com. Just drop us a note saying, hey, I hit the PayPal, hit the $50, Lock up my seat, just RSVPing, making sure you did it. mtsmeetup@gmail.com. So 2 glorious hours. Hang with us. We love hanging out with everybody, and it's a way we can honestly talk about things that we really can't talk about on the show just because they're more meandering conversations. And you can ask us anything about the show or anything at all. I'm happy to answer any questions as well. So again, a week from Thursday, join us and be part of our end of summer Zoom meetup. I mean, you can never appear on camera. Just join us. It's a virtual thing. So Courtney will be there. She'll be on camera. She never appears on camera. Tony, Kim, the crew. Albert's going to be there as well. So look forward to seeing you all.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Now, I promised it to you. Tony, if you are ready with some law and disorder, let's do it. This is Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by 2 separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law, you're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
The jury has come back, a Texas jury finding the parents of a school shooter not liable for the negligence in the civil trial that was brought in connection with the 2018 shooting at the Santa Fe High School. The jury did find the gunman liable and awarded the plaintiffs more than $300 million. This gunman killed 8 children, 2 adults, wounded over a dozen others at this high school near Galveston. The thing went down in 2018. He was 17 years old at the time, the gunman. Survivors and family members of some of those who were gunned down sued the parents, who you see here. They accused the parents of failing to properly secure the family's firearms and failing to act on their son's declining mental state leading up to the shooting. Parents of a depressed child, this is a quote, should safely store their guns, said the attorney for the plaintiffs. If they don't, and their child commits a school shooting with them, the parents share in the responsibility of those harms and losses. The parents testified that they didn't see any warning signs ahead of the shooting, and their attorney said that they couldn't be held liable for the son's actions. I think the parents needed to be vindicated, and it needed to happen publicly, said their attorney. The plaintiff's attorney said that they would have liked to have had the parents share in the responsibility for this act. Parents should know their kids better than anyone else, and they should be all our first lines of defense, said the attorney. So this is, and I'll just make this point. They blame the retailer, the parents do. They don't blame themselves for not seeing these signs. So there was a lot of finger pointing in all of this. But this kid, 17 years old, bought more than 100 rounds of ammo. And they did sell him that ammo without verifying his age. I mean, it's an extraordinary thing. That's Texas. They're looser on gun laws. But I believe they settled, didn't they? Yeah, Lucky Gunner was a defendant in the lawsuit until last year. Then they did settle with the families. I mean, this is a profoundly sad thing, and it's almost pathetic that we have to go to a jury system and sue for liability and get some kind of check and payment and let that teach them a lesson. But you know what? That's the society we live in. The way to punish both these companies and even the parents, who I would suggest, and again, maybe when you get into the granular nature of things, the parents didn't know a lot, but I'd suggest that they have to bear some responsibility. And I get it. They're guilty. They'll be haunted by this. But I'm sorry, when your son has access to this stuff and your son is going through these kinds of the throes of a mental episode, depression and more, you have some responsibility to become involved in some way. Now, to be fair to the parents said, we didn't know he was in the throes of a mental episode or in depression. So, in fact, the quote from the father was, sometimes it takes years to recognize that your kid's sick. Okay. The parents have not been charged with any crime in all of this.
What's interesting is, and I know that it was a criminal case in Michigan, the Crumbly case, where the parents were actually found criminally liable and sent to jail. But I was reading an analysis on the case you just mentioned, and the thinking was, okay, well, if this case is successful, then it might be that the pendulum is swinging toward parents being held responsible in multiple cases like this. So it's interesting that they were not held liable.
Yeah, and I'd suggest, at least from a jetliner view of things, that that's exactly what you want to do. You want to hold parents responsible up to a certain point because they are the first line of defense. On the other hand, a lot of parents don't know that their kids are doing drugs. They don't know that their kids are involved in a number of different things. When kids leave the house, you really don't have the cleanest idea of what they're doing. I mean, the clearest idea.
I know that we don't want to be helicopter parents. I understand that. But you have to pay attention. You have to grab their phone and look through their texts and make sure that, there's no creeps flying around or that things are appropriate. You have to be an active participant in their lives. You can't just back off and say, okay, well, you're a teenager now, so go ahead and do whatever you're going to do. There's still parenting responsibilities. You still have to be engaged.
As Tony in San Antonio said, looser on gun laws, Mark. We don't have any gun laws in Texas. Sue Republicans for not passing gun legislation, says Mindy. Yeah. Meantime, Oklahoma State coach Mike Gundy has had enough of the distraction that goes along with this new era of college football. The new era is that college athletes are able to petition for money.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State players are being told now, stop asking for more money.
I mean, if you could ask, wouldn't you? Why? The worst they're going to say is no.
Mike Gundy, who's the Oklahoma State coach, told his players it's time to play football and to inform your agents to quit calling us and asking for more money. The changing world of college sports, the NCAA, Atlantic Coast Conference, Big Ten, Big 12, Pac-12, and Southeastern Conference agreed in May to pay billions in damages to former and current college athletes who were denied the ability to earn money, dating all the way back to 2016. So the business side of college sports is now growing and is so overgrown, many of these college coaches are saying, that they have to say, quit calling us agents. We're not only about that, we're about winning football games and showing up to practice.
Well, some of these players aren't going to go pro. So this is really their only opportunity to get that kind of sports money, right?
I'd suggest that most won't. And that's exactly right. You have to strike while the iron is hot, to use the phrase, right? A shock to us all, says the LAPD. They are firing supervisors of the Mission Gang Unit down in Southern California. A year after LA cops from an anti-gang unit in the San Fernando Valley were accused of illegally searching vehicles and stealing from people they pulled over. An internal department email shows 3 of their supervisors now are facing termination. Dominic Choi, who's the interim chief, calling for the firing of a captain, a lieutenant, and a sergeant in the LAPD's Mission Division. They were not authorized to speak publicly, any of these people. So this is kind of information that journalists have found. At least 5 lower-ranking officers have been implicated in this scandal. It is still unfolding. But these 3 high-profile cops being relieved of duty. This unit came under scrutiny last year when an LAPD internal investigation found misconduct by officers, including the theft of a knife with brass knuckles on the handle. The lieutenant in charge of that gang unit and one of the supervisors, they are among those being let go. There are 5 additional officers that apparently have roles in all of this as well, and they will be terminated too. And that is Law and Disorder.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Right on, everybody. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
What else do I need to do today, Tony? Is there something else I need to do? I've mentioned the meetup, which is happening a week from Thursday. I've mentioned those who have been generous and have contributed to the show. But I may have skipped a couple. I don't see them always when you... here is one. I don't remember seeing Debbie's comment. A bit ironic how Trump touted the Presidential Medal of Honor, and he believes it's the better medal, and we're reminded Biden was given the medal by Obama. I'm surprised Trump hasn't given it to himself. Yeah, actually, Debbie, that's a great point. First of all, a big shout out to you for a $10 super chat.
Big shout out.
And it's wild that Trump pretty much has bestowed the medal on everybody. This is a civilian honor, as you're aware, on everyone he could. I mean, you'll remember he gave it to Rush Limbaugh. That's the one that springs to mind. And a bunch of people like that who contributed to his campaign. So he was passing it out like, a paper boy used to pass out the morning paper, in the old days when we used to get the morning paper. But I agree that giving it to himself is the only thing, that, as far as we know, that he's left out. No contendo. Big shout out. 45 connects with low IQ rural people based on fear of economic social diversity and ignorance. Hashtag Jane Elliott, hashtag Carol Anderson. I would say this about that no contendo. You're right. There is a sense of they're coming for you and for what you have in this culture and in this society and in this economy. And I think that is true, that they play on that fear. And 45, as you say, does play on that fear. So total agreement. And was that it? I already posted the West comment during the David K. Johnston interview. Here is a comment from Noah Marie, who says, in 2008, I learned I was experiencing an ectopic pregnancy almost too late. I am very lucky, she says, because life-saving care needed within hours was accessible. My Trumper family doesn't understand their vote. Yeah, they don't understand what their vote means.
She could have died. Noe Marie, by the way, a former KGO staffer, will be at the event.
Yes, at the meetup. That's right. Did I say her name right, or did I feel like I mangled it? Noe Marie. Maybe
Noe
I didn't.
Marie. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Noe Marie. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. That's great. Yeah, former KGO staffer.
Mm-hmm.
Those former KGO people, I love to hang out with them. Reminder of a time past.
I love the clips online of Tim Walz, says Janet, being interviewed and his kids making bunny ears behind him. I haven't seen those.
I haven't
That's
either.
really great. That's really funny.
They must
Thank
have
you,
run
Janet.
it at the DNC last night, and I missed that part.
Yeah,
that's
big
awesome.
shout out to that.
Big shout out.
Did not see it. Wow. There's a lot to love about Tim Walz. He's just sort of, a very accessible guy.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with him on everything, but I think he does have a pretty progressive agenda. So I'm very, very much taken with him, and I think he's a great addition to her ticket. So, got all of that.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We must wrap. And tomorrow, we've got a really cool show for you. Rothman's away, and Mo Kelly from KFI Radio is going to be here. I know, he's a real popular kid. What is the problem? It's too hot, Tony? Something's wrong? Something's too loud? Something's not
said
right?
Mo Kelly. I was like, nice.
Oh, Mo Kelly. Oh, yeah. Mo Kelly was enough to wake Tony. That's really good. Just the mention of Mo Kelly. He's
thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
David didn't have a problem drinking when you were talking. So.
Oh, look at that. Dave, next time, you're right. When my gosh. Oh, my God. I love that. Thank you so much, Tony, for pointing that out. I'll feel more free to have a coffee in the future. So Kim's doing the After Party Live next, which is over on the After Party Live channel.
We'll do it live.
And she does a bunch of stuff. And a lot of people go over there. Yeah, hit subscribe. Tomorrow.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
We'll dissect night 2 for the Dems and
All
more.
time. Bye-bye.
We are out of time. Till tomorrow, thanks everybody, and bye-bye.